apologize for my absence last week, but thanks very much to Nick Talbot for filling in. I definitely appreciate that. The gang is back. Get your popcorn ready, as always. No salt, no butter. Krista Pirtle is here behind the camera. Brian Navarrete is here as well, just in from Friendship's win over Clovis. Mike Labar is in as well. Overall, we're kind of unsupervised right now, so who knows what might happen. It's a question we've been asking ourselves as we were getting ready to start the show. Nick Talbot is about to make the drive to cover tech, and our multimedia editor, Marco Rogers, is down there already with Don Williams, and I imagine they found some trouble to get into already. We're going to take you through all the scores from the area games tonight. Krista covered 2 games, the doubleheader at Lowry Field. Brian saw Friendship play against Clovis. We also had coverage of Roosevelt and the Sudan game at Smyer, and I actually took in the Shallow Water game when Shallow Water hosted Snyder. To start quickly, Krista, can you just tell us, Estacado gets its first win. This team had played very poorly on offense, but it finally gets that first win against Lakeview. Lakeview matters because it's in 4-5A, and it's generally thought to be competing with Lubbock High for that last playoff spot. How did Estacado look today?
One key thing defensively for Estacado was that Lakeview only passed the ball 5 times, and its only completion came on its final drive of the game.
Okay.
So really all they had to do was stop the run, and they excelled at that. Offensively, they struggled to start out in the passing game, but their running game really helped things out. That's what Coach Servant said afterwards, that the running game was the biggest improvement he's seen so far. So that was really the key to that. And then at the end, getting that defensive touchdown off the fumble recovery was huge for them.
As always, for those of you joining us now, please ask questions. We're happy to chat about any of the games from the area tonight. Just before I get into the Shallow Water Snyder game, Brian, tell us a bit about Friendship, because I saw they were actually trailing. It was trailing at some point to Clovis.
That's been the case for most of their games starting this year. They always end up having to come from behind, which could prove to be an issue heading into district. I don't know why they're stronger in the second half rather than in the first half, but yeah, they did come back. Ronald Awad, he rushed for a 53-yard touchdown run that kind of got the offense going. Tris Kennard was able to kind of air it out, keep them off of Awad a little bit more for them to come back. And defense, although, the score doesn't quite reflect it, the defense performed pretty well today, aside from letting 2 big passes go for touchdowns.
What's the situation with Hayden Harrison playing on offense?
Honestly, I think it was kind of a misdirection thing, them being they line him up at fullback. He does a little fade route to, Kennard's right-hand side, which is his throwing side. And I think with somebody as physical as Hayden Harrison, you don't expect him to be downfield catching passes.
Yes.
So when he lines up at fullback, you assume they're going to punch it down the middle.
Right.
That's how I see that going. But he did comment saying that, it's one of the many things that Friendship has not shown yet,
right,
which is interesting heading into district. You got Broderick Harrell playing offense now.
Right.
Now you see Hayden Harrison there. They're passing the ball a lot more than they did in the first game. And could see a lot more things heading into district from Friendship. We're
going to get back to the 2-6-8 discussion as well, and I sincerely hope we get some questions on this. I think Monterey, by continuing to win as it did today, at Paladuro, is kind of muddling the 2-6A situation in kind of a positive way, at least if you're an LISD fan, because I didn't quite think that Monterey would be rolling, in the manner that it has been. I think, once again, Baylor Mitchell, fresh off of winning, the Built For It Tough award last week, continues to play really well, and it's a strong win on the road there. If you guys want to look at the cover of the print edition of the Lubbock Avalanche-Journal.
Like old times.
Yeah. So that's actually the power headline that I came up with. As I mentioned, for those of you that are just joining us, this is, of course, Lone Star Varsity's wrap-up show on Periscope, and thanks very much for joining. I just am fresh in from the Snyder at Shallow Water game. We went with the headline of like old times because I think that, people don't quite realize that Shallow Water was just about to, drop its 3rd game in a row. You're talking about Midland Greenwood lost back on September 11th. There was a game against Estacado that was a no contest in between that. Last week it loses to Idalou in a game in which it had an enormous lead, squandered that lead, and did not score in the second half at all. I was curious to see what would happen against Snyder because the Tigers are not a slouch team at all. They've actually improved pretty significantly. Coming into this game, they had beaten Littlefield, which really is a great way to start the season. Slaton and Midland Greenwood very, very strongly. So I think in this contest, Cooper Ogle did a remarkable job with 5 touchdowns. The misfortune of being a really superb player is that people, in a way, get used to your excellence. And I think that's what happened with Ogle, because as I'm watching this, he is obviously still exceptionally impressive, over 200 yards with those 5 touchdowns. To me, the story of this game was Chris Contreras, all right? This is technically, I suppose, his first full year as a full-time quarterback. Even though he was a starter last year, he was splitting reps with Weston Elliott, who was a 6'5 quarterback. He has since transferred to Midland Christian. Something we hadn't explored this year, but I think it's really pertinent now, is did Elliott's loss at all diminish the shallow water offense? It's what I wrote about in my story tonight. And presently, I think the answer is no. What Elliott did nicely was that his height was able to be utilized in the red zone. Contreras is a slight player. He's not very big at all, but his speed is outstanding. He was making darting runs tonight. He rushed for over 170 yards, passed for about 150, was averaging 10 yards a rush, 10 yards a pass. He was very accurate. I was super impressed with him. I think Contreras is really the story of this game, particularly because Shallow Water hadn't established their go-to passing target yet. Preston Scaff is gone. He walked on to Tech after playing a great tight end and defensive end role last year. So I think we're starting to see perhaps Contreras find some targets to go to. We getting any questions yet?
Not quite yet. I have a question. Who lined up at quarterback for Snyder?
Logan Tate.
Okay. I know there was a question mark there between him and another athlete.
Yeah. Snyder is not bad at all. I think that Tate had to throw the ball a bit too much as the game went on, and that was what ended up being problematic. But I will say this, that's a really big team physically, and it passes the eye test. They're also addressing a lot more players than they had previously.
Somebody had 3 questions while you were talking. Maybe ask them if they could repeat that question. Repeat those questions. Apparently, they had 3 questions, but
You can't see them?
I didn't see them at first.
Yeah, let's ask them again, definitely.
Sam Mantrix. We'd appreciate the questions again if you could repeat them. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, not at all. Not at all. Stop me as soon as you get one.
Yes,
It might be best to just quickly take a break from Snyder just to go down some of the scores that we wanted to.
They asked for any update on the injured Clovis player, which I heard he's still being evaluated at UMC.
Yes, and then are there any stats for Seagraves players?
Yes. We can give you those right now. Seagraves won 61-29 over Trinity Christian. Let's see, for Seagraves, it started off with Ramon Aranda with a rushing touchdown. Richard Longoria had a rushing touchdown. Will Wilkins had a rushing score as well. Now, background information. Will Wilkins is a Plains transfer. He has been backing up Joseph Guerrero. This is the first action, I believe, that we've seen from him this year. It wasn't initially known if he was going to be cleared, but he is. Richard Longoria then caught a pass from Wilkins. Let's see. Skylar Clark returned a punt 50 yards for a touchdown. Quashis Williams caught a pass from Wilkins. Let's see. Another touchdown run from an Anderson. Longoria had another touchdown run. And a Sinatau, that's the name that we haven't heard from Seagraves, also getting a touchdown run. So just some finals quickly. Seagraves had 584 rushing yards and just 35 passing yards. So once again, Seagraves continues to roll.
Somebody asked what was the biggest surprise game tonight.
It's a great question. Let's go through some of the scores, and perhaps I'll be able to pick something out from that. Monterey 28, Paldero 14, Coronado 58, Hobbs 35, Friendship 29, Clovis 21, Plainview 28, Hereford 14, Levelland 34, Bushland 32, Dalhart 33, Seminole 20, Shallow Water 48, Snyder 28, Estacado 20, San Angelo Lakeview 13, Roosevelt 14, Friona 6. I'll stop right there quickly. A couple surprises. I thought Roosevelt would be capable of putting up many more points on Friona than it did, so that's one surprise right there. Second, not necessarily a surprise, but Levelland getting its second win against Bushland is something to keep your eye on. Bushland is a remarkable 4A team, but it is just dealing with so many injuries right now that it's kind of a shell of its former self. This isn't the same team that started the year, because we know how quality Bushland is. It's been really high in the Lone Star Varsity poll this entire year, but it's absolutely beat up right now. I think Plainview getting the win over Hereford, it's good as well. A surprise in the sense that you don't quite know what you get if in fact Wrangler Harrisnape returned his quarterback. So we're going to have to double check that box score to see if he did. But I know Mark Ramos had been spelling him in his absence because of injury. Any more questions right now? We'll quickly run down some of the 2A scores. Vega 28, Lockney 8, Ira Ann 51, Sundown 7. So Sundown continues to struggle. Let's see. Bovina 46, Morton 19, Sudan 27, Smyer 15, Spring Lake Earth 34, Claude 0. I went out to Earth technically to do a feature on Spring Lake Earth. This team improved to 6-0 now. It's playing absolutely remarkably. That feature is on LoneStarVarsity.com. Boys Ranch 28, Plains 8. Any last minute questions from you guys before we wrap up? I just wanted to know, Brian, quickly, if this at all from Friendship, this performance tonight, gives you a better picture of what it might be capable of in district play.
No, not quite yet. Just because they're not starting as strong as they're finishing, I would like to see them play a full 4 quarters, honestly. Ronald Awad had a phenomenal day. He's a really good running back. I don't think that shows a lot because a lot of people do key on him.
Yes.
But Tristan Kennard definitely, helps free him up a little bit with his ability to throw the ball and stretch plays out. Somebody wants to know who's your player or game of the week?
Upcoming or presently from what we just had?
What about presently?
I'll say presently, I think Quay Gray getting 5 touchdowns against Hobbs is very important. It's a big storyline right now because if you look at the performance against Permian that took place last Thursday, there was a 38-6 loss. Quay Gray, when you watch him, he doesn't look like a sophomore. He is probably, aside from Jared Dagey, I would say he looks the part more than anyone else right now. He's just very, very polished, and he looks confident. He has thrown a lot of picks, and I think that's concerning, but he's also a young player. Coronado also did not have Noah Seifert in the lineup because he was dealing with a shoulder injury last week. So I think right now that Coronado win over Hobbs, the win is not really a surprise. It wasn't a complete wash, but I think the 5 touchdowns from Quay Gray is definitely pretty promising. Anything else right now?
Oh, how is Jarrett doing?
Jarrett Dagey?
Yes.
Off the top of my head, Cooper won against Caprock handily last night. He threw 3 touchdowns. That brings him to 10 for the year, 10 passing touchdowns for the year. He finished in the 215-yard range. So once again, a very precise effort from Jared Dagey. As you see, Cooper continued to progress, and that was a blowout win over Caprock on the road Thursday.
By my count, it's his first week to break 200 passing, correct?
That could be right.
I think so.
That could be right.
Your stats, man?
I don't remember.
Well, with that, if we have no last minute questions, we are going to wrap it up for tonight. I'm Phil Torino. Thanks very much for watching the Lone Star Varsity post-game wrap-up show on Periscope. We really appreciate it. As always, continue to send us our questions on all our social media, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, at Lone Star Varsity. All the content from tonight's games, all the box scores, all the results, LoneStarVarsity.com. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you next Friday. Say it again?
Shout out Dylan Hendricks.
You got to love the enthusiasm from Seagraves. Thanks again.